Hello there everybody, I'm Adam Cleary and you may remember me from such infamous Star Trek Mysteries videos as this. Have we any idea what came through the rupture before we were able to shut it down? No sir, we were unable to track it once it left the cargo bay. Maybe it was a probe of some kind. Possibly they were simply curious, explorers like ourselves. Ensign Rhaegar and I were lucky to escape with our lives. Lieutenant Hagler is dead. Whoever it was sent that thing was more than simply curious. Yes, I know, fun for all the family, but when I was putting that article and subsequent video together, it made me realise that there was loads of intriguing Star Trek mysteries still out there, but ones that had been solved over the years, and some of those have been solved by deleted scenes. They weren't supposed to be these big mysteries that went on and on and on. They weren't supposed to be these unwrapped up narrative threads. They were just simply things that had been written and included in a movie and then chopped out and left on the floor. But after talking to some of my more learned colleagues out here at What Culture Towers, I discovered that a lot of people didn't know about these deleted scenes. A lot of people just assumed that these mysteries had been left hanging. So me being the caring, giving soul that I am, I thought I'll solve these mysteries for all these people by telling them about the deleted scenes, and in the process, if I happen to entertain a couple of thousand of you while I'm doing it, well, all the better. So that incoherent, rambling introduction aside, my name is Adam Cleary and these are 10 Star Trek mysteries that were solved in deleted scenes. Number 10, Star Trek Generations. Soran tortures Geordi. So you may remember there was a little bit in Star Trek Generations where Soran goes back to the Duras sisters and they ask him how their guest is getting on, and he says, with a very knowing smirk, his heart just wasn't in it. Now at the time, I think most of us watched that and just sort of thought, don't really know what he means by that, but there was a scene included in the original version which was quite likely cut to keep the film's PG rating, and it involves Soran quite literally torturing Geordi. Now in the theatrical cut, yes, we do see Geordi on the table, we see Soran about to begin his line of questioning, but then just as things start to get a little bit grisly, it cuts away. But nuts! Not in the original version, no, you saw it all. And what he did was he took a Borg nano probe, he put it in Geordi's heart, and he used it to keep stopping and starting his heart, which as torture methods go is wincing. And just as another little clue of this, you can actually hear Dr. Crusher later in the movie saying that she removed the nanoprobe from his heart and he should be all better. It's just that the thing that connects the first line with the thing that connects the second line wasn't in the movie. Thing is though, it's weird, isn't it? He was literally on a torture table getting his heart stopped, then he was back at work in a couple of hours. It's hard as Geordi. Number 9, Star Trek Discovery. Welcome to section 31. Alright, now you might have watched Star Trek Discovery and amongst the very many questions you might have had, wondered what those little black badges were and also how the hell Georgiou got into section 31. An explanation for this was not only written to be included at the end of season 1, but also filmed and on top of that, then released as a secret bonus scene about a month after the episode aired. Back on Kronos, we see Mirror Universe Georgiou running some kind of like cabaret shagging club for all the Klingons when she is approached by Leland from Section 31, who amongst other things literally offers her a way into the organisation and hands her that black badge. Funny story about that, Leland actually says to her, you can keep your day job selling lap dances or you can help shape galactic affairs. And if you just change the word galactic for content, that is exactly the same way What Culture approached me. Anyway, by the third episode of season 2, Georgiou is deep within section 31. It's kind of just like, yep, there you go, there she is. So this would have been a very useful inclusion if nothing else. Number 8, Star Trek 2009, the Kobayashi Maru virus. Yeah, I can't have been the only one who sat and watched J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, and then when he did the whole thing with the Kobayashi Maru test, went, ha, that's clever. You gonna tell me how he did that? And there was actually something in the film to explain how he beat the test. Like, you may remember that scene in which he is making out with the gorgeous Orion woman, Gayla, and it's supposed to be, oh look, he's such a bad boy, the women can't resist James T. Kirk. They want a bit of the old phaser set to erect, or I don't know, I'm not really very good at any of this, but the whole point of that was not that he was just a caddy, not that he was a playboy, not that he was shagging his way across the galaxy, is that he was using her through this seduction to manipulate the test. What was supposed to happen was he was supposed to give her a love letter which he says you must open at exactly 3 o'clock tomorrow because I'm such a little sweetheart. She goes to her desk, she opens it and it triggers a computer virus which rigs the Kobayashi Maru test. It's actually very clever. And they accidentally left a little bit of this in when he apologizes to the Orion crew member on the Enterprise who is not Guyla. So it's kind of just like this weird implication that he's been using some woman who he can barely remember, and without the context that it was for that reason, it's really gross. Number 7, Star Trek Nemesis, the Crushers. Now, yes, hello, my name is Adam Cleary, and you may remember me from such Star Trek mystery videos as that one I talked about before, in which I demanded to know what the hell happened between Wesley and the Traveller. He just got bored of inner and outer space discovery, did he? He got bored of the limitless, boundless possibilities of the universe and decided to settle back into a day job in engineering. Now, a deleted scene from Star Trek Nemesis doesn't exactly explain this. It gives us nothing about why he has come back, but it does at least tell us what he is going to do now that he's back. Will Wheaton gets a line of dialogue in which he says he is off to join Riker and Troy on the USS Titan, and Picard comments on how great it is to see him back in Starfleet. Now, obviously, in the theatrical cut, that's all got removed and he just gets this glorified background role of waving at all the long-term fans from the very, very back of the shot. But in this, you do at least get some context. And while I'm at it, in this movie, Beverly Crusher just seems to up and leave before the end of the film and nothing's ever said about it. There is also a deleted scene in which she explains she's off to rejoin Starfleet Medical, but they just decided that we didn't need to know that. One of the main cast, one of the principal crew members can just go and leave and not be in the end of the film, and nobody will wonder why. Number 6, Star Trek Nemesis, Spot's new owner. And you know what, while we're on the subject of Star Trek Nemesis, may I just offer this one? Where the hell was Spot? Now, alright, yes, in the wider conversation of Data, being that he was literally exploded at the end of the movie, the fate of his cat probably seems slightly inconsequential, but no, I am not having that. Cats are brilliant. I want to know what happened to it. And they actually answered that. They put a scene in the movie that was supposed to really reflect on Data's sacrifice. They had a grieving Geordi and Worf going through all of Data's things in his quarter, finding Easter egg after Easter egg after Easter egg from his time on The Next Generation, before eventually Worf decides he is going to adopt Spot, which is itself a wonderful little callback to when Worf has to care for Spot in the episode Phantasms, where Data's like, you must tell him he is a pretty cat and a good cat and all this, and Worf goes, I will feed it. And in the end, not only do we not know what happened to Spot, but by cutting this scene, we don't really know what happened to Worf or LaForge, and they just kind of just yeeted half the cast out the window in this film. It's bad. Number 5, Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, Operation Retrieve. So, yeah, you know that bit in the end of The Undiscovered Country where Scotty just shoots that Klingon? Who was he? Well, and I'm going to keep this really, really short, that was supposed to be Colonel West. In a Scooby-Doo-esque reveal, at the end of that movie, we were supposed to see somebody rip off the Klingon mask and it be Colonel West all along. And you know what? He would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling old people. Now, if you're sitting there going, hang on, I've actually seen that bit, it has now made it into certain versions of the film from about 2004 onwards, but for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, this whole added Starfleet element to the conspiracy was just not really very well fleshed out, which is stupid, because it's better. Number 4, Star Trek 2009, Kirk's childhood. Now, this one might just be me, right? But when I sat and watched J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek movie, there was a little bit of me in the cinema near the start that just went, where's he got that car? I mean, I'm just going to gloss over the fact he was also listening to the Beastie Boys because, well, they made a big thing out of that in another movie. But just little boy with a sports car that's like 200, 300 years old, just driving it around for no apparent reason. Yes, he gets a phone call where it's like, you bring that thing right back now, that's an antique, but it doesn't really explain how he got it. Well, in a cutscene, Kirk was at home witnessing yet another big family argument where at the culmination of it all, he was instructed to go out there and clean his late father's antique car. He goes to do it, when instead he finds the keys and decides he needs to get away from the constant arguing from his unsatisfying home life, so he takes it for a little joyride. It's not a lot, but it does at least explain where he got a car. And if nothing else, it does add to some of the stuff about his life being completely different following the change in the timeline. His home life is a mess, his relationship with the mother is a mess, he hates his stepfather, it's all going wrong at home, and this genius level repeat offender wants to get out of there. Number 3, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, Peter Preston. Big exciting Star Trek film, and Scotty just appears and he's got some poor laddie's body in his arms and he can't believe it. And the thing is, like, he's in the film, Kirk meets him at the very start, and here is just a generic young officer. At the end he's dead in Scotty's arms, but he's still just a generic young officer. So why was everybody so sad? People die on starships all the time. Well, a deleted scene contained a bit of extended dialogue in which it is revealed, and hope you're sitting down for this one, the poor lad is Scotty's nephew, his actual flesh and blood, and it dies in his arms. That is why Scotty is so devastated, so emotionally moved by his death, that he just carries him to the bridge to have a bit of a moment rather than, you know, taking him to see Dr. McCoy. Like, it adds a lot, I think, that little line. A lot. Number 2, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Why the prophets chose Sisko. Now, hands up here, this is something I never fully understood about Star Trek, but just happily assumed it must have been explained at some point. I didn't get into Deep Space Nine until a little bit later on, because you lived in the UK, you could only get it on, I think it was like Wednesdays or Thursdays on Sky One, or Sundays on BBC or something. It was quite far along by that point, so you kind of had to catch up with it without the aid of the internet. I just assumed everybody knew why the prophets chose Ben Sisko. I didn't think too much about it. But the thing is, they never actually really did. They just made vague allusions to it across the show's many seasons, and then right at the very end, just still kind of hinted at it. Nothing ever really got said aloud. But in a deleted scene that was supposed to be part of the pilot but ended up getting cut for time, Kai Opaka tells Ben Sisko that the reason they chose him, this alien, this visitor, this stranger to their world, was precisely because of that. Because he is a non-believer and no one should ever look into the eyes of their own gods. Now, yeah, they do kind of hint at that in the very last episode, but the entire run of Deep Space Nine, a lot of it would have made just a little bit more sense if we understood why Sisko kept getting plucked out of reality by these wormhole aliens. I mean, I just assumed we already knew it, which is kind of why it's weird. Number 1, Star Trek 2009, Klingon Prison Planet. Yeah, this is the big one, isn't it? What the bloody gosh darn bleeding Zippo Star Trek hell were Nero and the rest of his really emo Romulan pals doing for 25 years? Like, they came out with a black hole temporal distortion thing, there was no sign of Spock, they had to wait for him, but they waited for 25 years. 25. Well, in a deleted scene, it's revealed that right after the USS Kelvin disabled the ship, it is then surrounded by a fleet of Klingon warbirds who throw all the Romulans into their prison planet of Rurapenthe. Now, obviously, the Klingons being Klingons, they eventually, after a lot of time, realize that, oh wow, this ship's like from the future and stuff, and oh wow, this guy might know some things that could be useful to us, so they try to torture him, and how do they torture him? They use that goddamn slug that he later uses on Christopher Pike. That's how he has it, that's how he knows how to use it. And before the Klingons can get any real useful information or backwards engineer any of the tech, he escapes and wipes them all out, and that's why we hear that a Romulan ship destroyed something like 47 or 49 Klingon vessels while escaping from the prison planet. It's all mentioned, it's all in there, it's all just off screen. And it wasn't supposed to be. And the thing is, if they had included that, given that the Klingons were desperately trying to find out about some weaknesses in Starfleet for some potential upcoming war, it might have just made the whole story about Star Trek Into Darkness make a little bit more sense. And that's why Starfleet had been pushed to such measures, because the Klingons had such an advantage having gotten their hands on the Narada, rather than just being a, oh, by the way, there's a conspiracy now. Hope that's cool. So there you have it. Those are 10 deleted scenes that explain confusing Star Trek moments and reveal some Star Trek mysteries and just help Star Trek feel a little bit more Star Trek. Let me know what you made of them in the comments below. Of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I've, of course, been Adam Cleary from Trek Culture, and we will see you soon. Gonna beam out now, right? Chris? Oh, he's not there. Oh well, I'll just edit it. Bye.